Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. You know, we've played Dark Souls 1 quite a bit on this channel. Some might even say too much. And despite my challenge run list having a seemingly endless supply of video ideas in store for this game, it is starting to feel like too much of a good thing. At least, it was, until I realized I have some truly awful ideas left in the barrel. Ideas that should never see the light of day, or at the very least should never be attempted by anyone with some semblance of sanity. Let me say that a bit louder. Do not attempt this run. Hear that, Dark Souls community? My videos aren't dares, they're warnings. So please stop trying to— Oh my god, why? So, in the spirit of protecting the community from themselves, today we're gonna find out. Can you beat Dark Souls 1 with only indirect damage? Now then, what the heck are we talking about? Well, it's simple really. When you play Dark Souls, you can swing a weapon. If that weapon hits an enemy, that enemy takes damage. This is what I would consider direct damage, as your button press has immediately resulted in the physical pain of another creature. However, there are several other things we can do in Dark Souls to remove enemies from the playing field. Things that, for lack of a better metaphor, keep the blood off our hands. Some of these things are pretty obvious. For example, hiring a mercenary to do our killing for us. But unlike Dark Souls 2, which has enough NPC summons to fight almost every single boss, don't ask me how I know that, Dark Souls 1 has a very limited pool of cooperative NPCs to pull from. So we're gonna have to get creative. I hope you're ready, because this was one of the strangest runs I've ever done for Dark Souls 1. But before we get too deep into the video, I have an announcement to make. And no, this isn't a sponsor break, this is just Lemon. Or rather, this is. Yep, that's right, I'm a plushie now. Thanks to the good people over at Makeship, we officially have a cuddle-able lemon plushie, complete with detachable, legally distinct firebomb. Lemon for scale. This little guy is soft, patient, and more than happy to just hang out, no matter what you're doing. You can take him on car rides, enjoy the local wildlife, bake some treats for your loved ones, or just whisper secrets to trees together. I don't like the John Wick series. Oh god, help! Lemon! Lemon! He's only available for a limited time, so if you're interested, make sure you head on over to Makeship and get him before he's gone. I'll put a link in the description and in a pinned comment, and probably advertise it a few more times on the channel just in case you missed the announcement. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for not skipping ahead. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, let's get into it. I create a pyromancer, give him the master key, then start the run in Firelink Shrine, because tutorial levels don't count. And after shoving some free humanity someone just left lying around into our pocket, we take the Firelink Shrine elevator down into New Londo, use the master key to open up the door to the Valley of Drakes, sneak down into Blighttown, and rest at the bonfire on the bottom floor. So far so good. And it's here that we find our first indirect form of damage, Poison Mist. The way I see it, status effects that do no damage when initially applied aren't direct damage. After all, it's not my fault the enemies choose to breathe in the fumes, which means poison and toxic are perfectly acceptable for the run, so long as it's not applied by a damage-dealing weapon. Next, we'll pop a humanity, use it to remove our teriyaki-flavored seasoning, then wander back to the Blighttown elevator until our meaty body attracts the nearby invader. Hello, Mildred. I hope you're ready. I have big plans for... You stuck? Big plans for you. Hoo boy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dark Souls 1 AI. Now remember, I'm not allowed to do any direct damage, so in order to defeat Mildred, she'll have to defeat herself. Unfortunately for her, wearing a bag over your face tends to make it hard to see, which is a problem when you're trying to fight on rickety platforming. And so, after several failed attempts to do literally anything, we have our first confirmed indirect kill of the run. I jam all of my souls into Vitality, since that's really the only thing that'll matter in this run, make my way into Quelaag's domain, and lo and behold, look who it is. Milf-Eater Mandrid, back for another... Wait, no. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lemon, you picked up Poison Mist. Why aren't you using it? Easy, because Quelaag is immune to it. In fact, most bosses are, which is why we're gonna need to turn to Mildred to what the fuck is she doing? Which is why we're going to need to... This run is gonna be a bad time, isn't it? Alright, Mildred finally figured out the lava. And it's right about here we notice two things. First off, Mildred does pretty decent damage. Not amazing, but still decent. And second, despite being coated head to toe in lava and consistently getting slapped around with a flame sword, Mildred's fire defense is through the roof. Which is great, considering most of the fire damage she suffers is self-inflicted. Now, unfortunately, this first attempt was a bust. Getting stuck in the lava for the entire first half of the fight definitely didn't help much. But once our summon is killed, we can actually just start and quit out of the fight. And after loading our game back up, we find ourselves right outside the boss fog again, humanity still intact. And since I'm not the one getting slapped around by Quelaag, we even still have all of our supplies. Okay, new plan. I sprinted as far and as fast as I could in the beginning of the fight, which caused Quelaag to spit her lava away from Mildred's pathing. After that, I did my best to be a nuisance, hoping the boss would target me and give Mildred a few free hits, which kinda worked, though not as well as I would have liked. But after several minutes of ducking and weaving, she's done it. Quelaag is chopped into tiny bits, and Mildred lives up to her accidental name, which means we've got one bell rung. Hell of a strong start. But now for something completely different. Hello there. I convinced Ingi that I'm all about that Chaos Covenant life, then relive some Ocarina of Time trauma. Oh wait. And after making sure that my service was no longer in doubt, I made my way into the demon ruins. Now for the hard part. After removing my helmet, which is absolutely crucial, I made it my mission to antagonize a nearby egg carrier. Unfortunately, while I can poison them, it doesn't make them aggressive. Even more unfortunately, we can now see what kind of damage we're looking at for Poison Mist. 3 damage per second. Riveting. Now, it is worth noting that poison lasts for 3 minutes, so a single proc of poison does approximately 540 damage. But that still doesn't solve our current problem. Thankfully, I'm just an idiot. There are several aggressive egg carriers just a little further down. Now for the next problem, getting them to bite me. If you can bait it out, the Eggman will attempt to grapple you, and if he succeeds, his parasite will attach itself to your head, facehugger style. I let this happen several times, and then I wait. And wait. And wait some more. Did you see that? Here, keep watching, maybe he'll do it again. There, right there. That animation, where your character acts like they've got lice, is how you know you've done it correctly. Because believe it or not, if you let yourself get grappled by an Eggman while you're not wearing a helmet, there's a slight chance you'll get infected. The first stage is itching, but the second stage, well, that's something else. And there we go, Egghead achieved. Now before you go and get excited, no, this did not just become an egg parasite only run. That's one of the other terrible runs I have at the bottom of my challenge run barrel, and we won't be digging that one out anytime soon. The real reason we did this is because Ingi here is a bit prejudiced, and won't talk to anyone who doesn't have eggs. But now that we do, he's kind enough to not only give me the cure, but also offer us access to his inventory, which includes 2 things I desperately need. Another cast of Poison Mist, and Toxic Mist. I'm sorry, you want how much? In this economy? Well, guess it's time to get grinding. Oh, but make sure you remove the egghead first. Otherwise a portion of your souls gets eaten by the parasite. It's a whole thing. Well, at least the grind is painless. Simply ignore everyone's personal space, then watch as everyone around you dies a slow, presumably agonizing death. The area of effect for Poison Mist is actually pretty large, and lasts longer than you think, and a single cast can infect entire legions of enemies, which is very helpful considering we only have 3 casts. Look at that, like a bunch of wriggling, disgusting dominoes. This might take a while. But after a few hours of grinding and listening to H-Bomber Guy talk about Pathologic, we've done it. 1 cast of Toxic at our disposal. I'll come back for the other Poison Mist later. I need a break from staring at lava. Now, Toxic Mist isn't all that much different than Poison Mist. The radius, cast time, and effect are all pretty much the same. However, you'll notice one key difference. It does 6 damage instead of 3. More importantly, you can stack it with Poison Mist, and Toxic lasts 10 minutes instead of 3. A little napkin math later, and you'll realize that a single proc of Toxic does roughly 3,600 damage. Not bad. Not bad at all. Assuming we can proc Poison and Toxic with a single cast, our maximum damage potential is 5,220. But that's a pretty big assumption. For one, not all enemies can be procced with a single cast, since some of them have higher poison resistance than others. And for 2, an enemy has to sit around in my fog in order to get poisoned. And as clunky as Dark Souls 1 is, it's amazing how quickly the enemies in this game start acting like they're in Bloodborne when you're trying to get them to stand still. Further exacerbating the problem is Poison Mist itself. Locking onto enemies is a terrible idea, since you'll end up spitting your mist completely past your target. And in the off chance that you do finally proc your status effect, I hope you're ready to squint at your screen, because the only way to tell that a boss is poisoned is by watching its health bar. No damage numbers for you, you get to count pixels. Now, after a second or two, the boss will have a purple cloud around it, so at least there's that. But there's a bigger reason I'm upset that we don't get any damage numbers. I just cast Toxic Mist. Did it hit? Are we doing more damage now? Or did I whiff? It may not sound that important. After all, this is probably the least interactive boss fight you've ever seen. We're literally just walking around the arena, and in the worst case scenario, we'll just have to start over. But lest you forget, if I have to start over, I have to do all of this all over again. Minutes upon minutes of slowly walking away, hoping you're not wasting your time. Because if that Toxic didn't proc, we just wasted upwards of 10 minutes. Per attempt. Oh, and God help you if you die in the middle of a fight. Thankfully, the Toxic must have procced, because after several minutes, the Taurus demon keels over of his own accord. Why is this more stressful than actually fighting the bosses? Oh, hey there, Solaire.
I have a proposition, if you have a moment.
Solaire, stop. My wife might be watching. After Solaire agrees that we should engage in jolly cooperation later, I sprint my way through the undead Bergen Parish, then make my way through the Deep Root Basin and grab myself the Grass Crest Shield. We're going to be doing a lot of running away today, so we might as well regenerate our stamina faster. You know what? While I'm in town, let's grab a few things for our build. I poison a nearby mimic tree, doing just enough damage to scrape by in a single cast, then grab myself the Wolf Ring, which boosts my poise almost as much as wearing the Elite Knight Armor would, which will be important when we're trying to burp in an enemy's face for several seconds. And, after coming back while human, I reveal witch Beatrice's secret summon sign, then run away to leave her to deal with all the enemies I brought along. I'm sure she's fine. And after she finally remembers how stairs work, we can move on to the next boss, the Moonlight Butterfly. Unfortunately for me, the butterfly is immune to both poison and toxic, so my only contribution to this fight is acting as a damage sponge. But as it turns out, I was worried for no reason. Bee's damage is actually really impressive, and much like Mildred, her magic defense is through the roof. It's almost like she was specifically created to help with this fight or something. Wait, hold on. There's the Dark Souls AI we know and love. Yeah, go on, give him the stick. Don't give him the stick! And a few minutes later, it's over. The giant magic butterfly, destroyed by magic. Yeah, I don't know either. Bee seems super excited about it though, and if she's happy, I'm happy. Right, on to the next fight. In order to move forward, we'll need to kill the gargoyles, but we're gonna need some help to do it. I grab the mystery key, then mysteriously get caught in a doorway, then proceed to mysteriously panic until I am mysteriously killed by every single enemy in the room. Alright gang, let's split up and look for clues. Okay, new plan. Let's hire some help. Go on, Solaire, get in there. No, just use your sword. Solaire, I swear to Gwyn, I will. And after watching Solaire progress through the church at a speed that would make geological erosion embarrassed, we free Lautrec and convince him to help us with our next mission. And with a full party summoned, it's time to dish out some pain. Today's meal is a perfectly sized portion of patience, served with a light sauce of undetectable anger, paired with a finely aged glass of boredom and frustration. You know, I was worried that bringing in several summons would bloat the boss's health pool too much, but yeah, no, I think we're gonna be fine. I run interference for the second gargoyle while Solaire and Lautrec finish off the first, and after a few more swings, down goes the first gargoyle, and then down goes the second. I think I had a harder time setting up the fight than I did actually doing it. Why do I get the feeling that's going to be a reoccurring theme in this run? Well, anyway, that's another bell rung, which means the path to Sen's Fortress is now open. However, we skipped over a few bosses, and I am curious if there's a way to beat them without direct damage, so we're not moving on just yet. Side note, I found a better way to cast my mist spells. If you look down at the ground without locking on, you can more or less cast them at your feet, which is a lot more predictable than trying to measure out the spell's maximum distance and hoping for the best. In any case, it's time to tackle our first optional boss, the Stray Demon. So, good news, bad news. The good news is that the Stray Demon barely moves at all, which makes setting up Mist extremely easy. And by the looks of it, Poison Mist procs with a single cast. The bad news is that I have to literally count pixels to see if we're doing any damage. That does not bode well. I cast Toxic Mist to speed up the process, but because the poison effect is already on the demon, and because the damage ticks are so small, I can't really tell if I hit it or not. Which is a problem, because the Stray Demon has 5,250 health. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I restarted the fight, then cast Toxic Mist first to confirm that it procced. And with that wheel in motion, we just need to cast the rest of our Poison Mist. Only, there's a slight problem. Remember the maximum potential damage I calculated earlier? Well, it was 5,220, 30 points shy of the Stray Demon's health pool. Which means we are either in for a devastating defeat with the Stray Demon surviving by the skin of its teeth, or my math is somehow wrong and we're gonna win by the skin of ours. And thankfully, miraculously, it looks like the latter. Finally, my notoriously bad math is paying off. And so, after watching a health bar drain pixel by pixel for 10 minutes straight, I turned to deliver the killing mist and misjudged the demon's AoE effect, then watched in horror as it set up another blast, killing me instantly. So that's fun, but now that I know it's possible, I can't just walk away, and even went so far as to set up a timer on my phone that went off every 3 minutes. That way I could spit mist without worrying if I was overlapping the cooldowns. And after almost exactly 10 minutes of running in circles, it's over. Stray Demon defeated by the very air it breathed. I don't forget the doll, then book it all the way back down to Blighttown, because I did forget to buy the 3 additional castings of Poison Mist. And after that fight we just had, I'd rather not waste another 20 minutes wondering if I have enough poison or not. Look at all this Poison Mist I'm packing. I can't wait to tell the Firekeep. Oh. Well, on to the next boss we skipped over, the Capra Demon. I do some quick circling to get off a Poison Mist, then watch as all 3 of the enemies in the room start to tick down. You love to see it. And a short while later, that's 2 doggos gone, which means we just need to find an opening to toxic the Capra Demon. And even though I made the rookie mistake of locking on while casting, I was able to lure the demon into the mist anyway, resulting in his death about 5 minutes later. Easy game for babies. What's next? Ah, right, the depths. Also technically optional, since we already beat Quelaag, but we might as well try it out. I poison Kirk, which goes about as well for him as you would expect. Then, after clearing out the sorcerer and his rats in the upstairs balcony, I summon Solaire to my aid, since I'll need all the help I can get. Unfortunately, because I did things all out of order, Lautrec's summon sign is nowhere to be found. So it'll just be us Sunbros for this fight. Alright, the Gaping Dragon. Don't worry, Solaire, I'll distract it. Solaire? Ooh, boy, this is gonna be bad. So, 2 problems. The first is that this thing is completely immune to poison and toxic. The second is that Solaire is not immune to damage, and is actually really bad at this fight due to how much of a bully the Gaping Dragon is. He didn't even clear 2 portions of the health bar before biting the dust. That's not even worth retrying. Yet. I might be able to rustle up something special for the Gaping Dragon later, but for now, let's move on. But not to Sen's Fortress. Oh, good heavens, no. No, it's time to sprint our way through the catacombs like a madman. I take a shortcut down to the halfway point of the level, then take another leap of faith down onto the platform below, where I find another summonable NPC. Paladin Leroy, at our service. Like most paladins, Leroy hates necromancy, and also like most paladins, Leroy's IQ is about as low as my willingness to play Elden Ring. Thankfully, Leroy hits with the ferocity of 1,000 suns, and can take out half of Pinwheel's health in a single hit. Combine that with some generous usage of Wrath of the Gods, and Pinwheel is evaporated into nothingness in only a few minutes, giving us not only the Rite of Kindling, which will be super helpful against Ornstein and Smo, but also a Mask of the Father, which is less helpful, but not unappreciated. But with that taken care of, it's time for Sens. I hype this snake man up and tell him that he can catch falling boulders, which was a lie, then collect my next ring, the Ring of Steel Protection, because extra defense is always nice to have. I also went out of my way to grab the Flame Stoneplate ring, because we'll need that fire protection later on in the run. After that, I gave the Firebomb Giant some fumes to breathe in, which did work, but was a bit too slow for my liking. So I decided to outsource the solution instead. Hello, Tarkus. I have work for you. An easy victory. Let's give you a harder challenge, yeah? The Iron Golem. There's not much to say about this fight, if I'm being honest. Unlike some of the other techniques we'll be using during this run, the fact that Tarkus can kill the Iron Golem all by himself is almost common knowledge at this point. So long as Tarkus stays in the main arena and far enough away from the ledges, the likelihood of him dying from the Golem's attacks is minimal. Of course, you won't get the cool falling animation unless you decide to risk Tarkus' life on the ledges, but I'm perfectly okay with an easy victory. Moving right along. Into Anne Orlando. Gods give me strength. Getting to Ornstein and Smo is our first challenge, but it's not as bad as you think. Just lure all the painting guardians off the rafters, with some hardcore parkour for style, give the Silver Knight Archer something to chase, which inevitably leads to him falling as well, then jump the banister on the stairs to immediately unlock the shortcut to O&S. Easy peasy. But here's the thing. Ornstein and Smo have thousands of HP each, and we don't really have that kind of damage output, so we're gonna need a little help. Isn't that right, Solaire?
You really are fond of chatting with me, aren't you? If I didn't know better, I'd think you had feelings for me.
Solaire, stop it. I'm a married man. I grab a few goodies for later, because boy howdy will we need them, then take a slight detour to invade Lautrec's world. This challenge run is hard enough as it is. I can't afford to have false friends stabbing me in the back while doing it. And with a healthy dose of poison and toxic applied, we just need to play keep away until Lautrec's health runs out. And there we go. Target destroyed. A shame our friendship had to end this way, but you gave me no choice. Now then, let's see the power of true friendship, shall we? I used Solaire to clear the room before the boss area, which doesn't go particularly well, but after a few save and quits, Solaire eventually gets the job done. And after one more save and quit to make sure that Solaire is at maximum health, it's time to see if this run is dead before the halfway point. No, don't look at the video runtime, that's cheating. The plan is simple enough. Distract one boss so that Solaire can hopefully kill the other. And honestly, I don't really care which one he chooses. Solaire can do some heavy damage to Smo, but seems to have an easier time fighting Ornstein, due to Ornstein not having so many pushing attacks. And since Smo is very easy to distract, so long as you keep him away from Solaire's duel, it isn't long before Ornstein is killed, and we can move on to Super Smo. And it's right about here where things get tricky. Unfortunately, Super Smo is no easier for Solaire than regular Smo was, and the damage has definitely dropped off now that we're in Phase 2. Combine this with the fact that Solaire doesn't understand the concept of stay out of the danger circle, and he's not long for this world. However, his sacrifice was not in vain, because now we can... Why isn't Smo's health going down? Okay, let's try that again. Please work. I can't keep Solaire alive for 2 full phases. Please, God. Ooh, okay. We have movement. But this does present a problem. Smo can't be poisoned unless we use 2 casts of Poison Mist, which means that despite my constant muttered curses, the likelihood of Smo getting toxic with only a single cast is probably 0 as well. And guess which boss has too much health for 3 Poison Mists to kill him? But before we give up, let's do a bit more testing. Solaire tends to get about the same amount of damage in every time, so we aren't going to be able to push that much further. But maybe my angle was off the last time I used Toxic Mist. This time, I aimed carefully, keeping Smo in the mist for the entire duration. And oh my god, it works! Super Smo has 4,094 HP. Combine the full length of a Toxic Mist and the damage that Solaire was able to do before biting the dust, and we should be able to squeak out a victory here with the 5 Poison Mists I have remaining. Fighting against Super Ornstein may have been easier resistance-wise, since Ornstein has a much lower resistance to poison and toxic. But with Smo, we can bait him into attacking this pillar over and over again, which makes waiting out the 10-minute toxic timer much easier. I reapply poison once the toxic runs out, which is a little more nerve-wracking than it should be, then watch in delight as Smo collapses in a shuddering heap. Somehow, someway, we're halfway there. I accept the Lord Vessel from Guinevere, which means we can finally warp between bonfires, then warp back to Firelink Shrine to talk to Frampt. So, is there another way to Firelink Altar? Because I will gladly take the stairs if they exist. And with the Lord Vessel placed, it's time for the hard part of the run. That's right, you heard me, it gets harder from here. Time to rebuild our character. I say hi to Seath, take a ride on the Crystal Bounce House, panic only briefly before the Poison Mist kicks in and kills the jail guard, who only has 2 HP by the way, then very quickly and nimbly breathe all over the 2 Pisakas that hide in the back of the room before making a daring escape. And after running around the room for several minutes, watching their health bars finally tick down to 0, I can run back into the room to collect my prizes, Soothing Sunlight and Bountiful Sunlight. These 2 miracles are very unique because they do what every miracle should be able to do, but don't. That's right, they heal other players. Bountiful Sunlight heals 10 HP every second for 60 seconds, while Soothing Sunlight heals players in one burst, healing 6 times your talisman's magic adjustment stat. So, for example, if you had a plain old talisman, you would have 200 magic adjust, which means it heals for a whopping 1200 health. Not bad for a single cast. Now, unfortunately, you do need to be in the Princess's Guard Covenant to use these miracles, but we don't really have a reason to be in the Chaos Servant Covenant anymore, so it's all good. Now then, time to start removing bosses off the second half of our list. First, let's start with Priscilla. She only has 2300 HP and doesn't aggro to you unless you do direct damage to her, so we should be able to take her out pretty easily. There's just one tiny problem. Her poison and toxic resistance are even higher than Smo's. She's not immune, but it does take 3 casts of Poison Mist to even get it to proc. And sadly, after doing a bit of research, I found out that the true damage of Poison Mist is actually 678, which is much better than our original guess of 540, but nowhere near enough to kill Priscilla with only 2 procs. And if it takes 3 casts of Poison Mist to trigger poison, then the 1 cast of Toxic Mist we have isn't going to be nearly enough. If only there was another way to trigger Toxic without actually doing any physical damage. Oh wait, there is! I'm not happy about it, but Dung Pies exist in Dark Souls, and throwing them does 0 damage, but applies Toxic to both the sender and the receiver. So, much like the Mist spells, this doesn't count as direct damage and is therefore completely fair game. God, I wish it wasn't. But be that as it may, Priscilla eventually gets Toxic after about 7 Dung Pies. I don't think I can insult everyone's favorite waifu any more than I just have. Hey, like and subscribe. So with that out of the way, let's see if we can fix our past mistake with the Gaping Dragon. Solaire, you've literally slain the Guardians of Gods at this point. How are you dying? Well, we've learned 2 things today. Solaire is apparently Benjamin Button and can level backwards instead of forwards, and the Gaping Dragon is impossible to beat with indirect damage, since it's immune to poison and toxic, and someone can't seem to get his act together despite my constant healing. 3 health bars. You couldn't even give me 3 health bars. Unbelievable. I tried this fight several times, but the most Solaire could ever give me was 4 and some change. So yeah, gonna chalk this one up to impossible and move on. Alright, moving forward. Our next targets are the 4 lords that guard pieces of Gwyn's soul, so we might as well collect everything we need to reach them. Let's start with Sif. It took several casts to poison her, since she hops all around the arena and doesn't like to sit in the mist for very long, but eventually her health started to tick down. Combine that with a few pies, and we should be in the clear. The good news is that from here on out, this fight was extremely easy, as all I had to do was 2-hand a Great Shield and just play keep away. The bad news is that this is the absolute longest that I've had to watch Sif limp around and suffer. God, I hate this. Why is this a thing? Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and had to run and hide behind Artorias' gravestone. I'm not crying, I just have something in both of my eyes. I'm not proud of this fight. Now, here's the thing. At this point in the run, there's only a few bosses left, and while a good number of them are probably doable, there's just a teensy tiny problem where every single Lord Soul boss is immune to status effects. So we're gonna need a new plan. But that's where my boy Oswald comes in. Oswald here sells a spell that does indirect damage in spades. That's right, it's time for a little karmic justice. Now chances are, unless you were big on the PvP scene back in Dark Souls 1's heyday, you have no idea what this miracle even is. And I don't blame you, because this thing has the most fucked up mechanics in the entire game. Basically, when you cast Karmic Justice, you now have a 60-second window to fulfill the miracle's requirements. If you fulfill those requirements, the spell causes God herself to explode out of you, dealing massive damage to everything around you. What are those requirements? Oh, nothing crazy, just take damage 5 times in a row, with each hit being no longer than 3 seconds from the others. You know, in the slowest and clunkiest Souls game. But here's the thing, if you can actually get this miracle to go off, the damage it does scales with your magic adjust. And not the magic adjust of your talisman, the magic adjust of whatever you're holding in your right hand at the time of the explosion. I'm sure you see where we're going with this. Yep, we're going hunting for the strongest magic adjust items in the game. The easiest one to obtain at the moment is actually on Rhea here. If she dies, we get her talisman, which has 234 magic adjust. Only one problem though, she's immune to poison and toxic, and her followers, despite being hollowed, can't hit her, which means I need them to trigger Karmic Justice, which will hopefully be enough to kill her in one blast. You'd think getting smacked around from 2 different sides would be enough, but Dark Souls enemies always take these weird pauses between attacks, which makes it really difficult to get the 5 hits I need. Eventually though, we get it. Was that it? Was it enough damage? Nope, she's still alive. And now she just healed back to full health. Fantastic. Well, the good news is that Rhea is aggressive now, so it's a lot easier to trigger Karmic Justice, but the bad news is that she just keeps healing back to full. And no matter how quickly I reapply Karmic Justice, and no matter how menacingly I stand next to her, she always pulls away and heals back to full every time she gets gobsmacked. Screw it, I'm out of ideas. Poison. Poison everywhere. Wait, what? So yeah, turns out NPCs that are unaggressive can't be poisoned unless you aggro them in some way. Seems kinda arbitrary, since that doesn't apply to Priscilla, but hey, Ivory Talisman, whatever. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but something tells me that if a single cast of Karmic Justice couldn't kill Rhea, 4 casts aren't gonna be enough to kill the endgame bosses. But lucky for us, there are a few ways to improve the Karmic Justice damage outside of the Magic Adjust stat. For example, there's the Crown of Dusk headset, which improves magic damage by 20%. And all we need to do is kill this Hydra in order to spawn the Golden Golem holding Dusk hostage, and yeah, no, this Hydra is immune to poison and toxic, which means we can't get the Dusk Crown, Dusk Ring, or access the DLC. Okay, well, what about better magic adjust in general? We've already got 234, but there's definitely higher ones out there, like the Tin Crystallization Catalyst. I mean, it's an absolute pain to push Logan through his questline with this build, but sure, why not?
Prepare to be impressed.
You know what, Logan? If you can make it past this horde of Pasakas on your own, I will be. I find Logan tucked away in the archives, then purchase all of his sorceries from him to push him forward.
Farewell.
Wait, why aren't you crazy? You're supposed to be crazy. Well, turns out I've been wrong about Logan's questline criteria the entire time I played Dark Souls. You not only have to buy all of his spells, you also have to kill Seath. So yeah, this should be fun. My first attempt went, badly, and my second attempt was marred by the fact that I was cursed now, but I had an idea. Seath will break his immortality crystal himself if you line his breath attack up properly, but we need some fast and consistent damage to trigger Karmic Justice. And it just so happens that Seath is more than happy to provide. Alright, you big lizard, I delivered justice for all the... Well, that's not good. Alright, well, what if we go get the red Tearstone ring and give him a blast of that? Nope. So turns out that Seath, magical dragon that he is actually pretty damn resistant to magic damage. Who would have guessed? And before anyone suggested in the comments, no, you cannot get yourself into hyper mode. Turns out, Karmic Justice is one of those spells that doesn't stack with Power Within, so it's not even an option, which means that Seath is impossible to kill with indirect damage, officially ending the run. Unless, what if there was a way around Seath? What if we killed every single boss we possibly could and somehow found a way around the ones we can't? You know what? Let's do it. We've already spent countless hours getting this far, what's a few dozen more? So first up is Ceaseless Discharge. And I already knew he was immune to toxic and poison, but I just wanted to be sure. After all, it wouldn't be the first time that Dark Souls makes zero logical sense, and maybe these dung pies count as hits even though they don't do damage. Okay, they don't. But now we know. So Ceaseless is a no-go, but we don't have to kill him to progress. All we need to do is jump off this cliff, roll to negate some of the fall damage, then very quickly run through the lava and across this lava fall to the relative safety of the other side. And thanks to our armor's high fire resistance and the flame stone plate ring we grabbed earlier, we do just that. Then it's just a matter of removing the grubs in our lawn with some all-natural pesticides, and we have access to a bonfire so we never have to do that again. Where's the bonfire? Where's the bonfire, game? So turns out that bonfire doesn't exist if you haven't killed Ceaseless. Cool, no pressure. I'll just kill the Demon Fire Sage on the first try. Yep, no pressure at all. Everything's gonna be fine. Oh god, please no! Thankfully, when FromSoft copy-pasted the Asylum Demon, they left in the code that makes him able to be poisoned and toxic. So this boss fight is just a waiting game. And with a little bit of testing, I've found a safe spot to sit in while the Toxic does all the work. Sheesh, I thought I was playing Dark Souls, not RuneScape. Up next is the Centipede Demon, but we've got to make a stop first. We head down into the Chaos Covenant shortcut, which is closed for us non-believers, but that won't matter in a minute. The chaos bugs that hop all around the area are poisonable, and when killed, drop 30 souls each. However, if we aim up a little bit before casting, we can actually cast Poison Mist through the door, poisoning the bugs on the other side. And if one of those bugs drops 100 souls instead of 30 upon death, then congratulations, you've officially killed the chaos bug that latches onto Solaire's face further into his questline, which means Sunbro is safe and free to travel with me into the next boss arena. Now, I don't have the lava ring, but I'm hoping that Solaire does. Otherwise, this is going to be a really short fight. And after running over to the safe space on the right side of the arena, we can see that Solaire can, in fact, run through lava with minimal damage. Of course, that doesn't mean he can't be snacked on by the Centipede Demon, but one battle at a time. We had a few close calls, with Solaire nearly biffing it halfway through the fight, but between my toxic damage and Solaire chipping away at its health, it's not much longer before the Centipede Demon dies a death of 1,000 cuts.
Why? After all this searching, I still cannot find it.
I just want him to be happy, you know? Moving along, I throw on the Dark Moon Seance ring to remove the false statue in Anne Orlando, then intrude on Gwendolyn's hallway to prove that a god can bleed. Well, maybe not bleed. Cough themselves to death? Unfortunately, Gwendolyn doesn't give us much time to throw dung pies or cast mist spells before they teleport away. And by the time I've reached them again, I think the status effect has already gone back to 0. So instead, we take the scenic route and run all the way to the back of the hallway, where Gwendolyn courteously breathes in my mists and accepts a very poor excuse for a pie until they're both poisoned and toxic. After that, it's just a matter of slowly circling around them until the deed is finally done. Fun fact, killing Gwendolyn does not remove the Godmother illusion, which means we are still technically members of the Princess Guard. It's okay, I don't get it either. But what I do get is Gwendolyn's helmet, which gives me an extra 10% magic damage. And yes, that applies to Karmic Justice. Maybe this will be enough to make the difference for Seath? Yeah, no, I don't know why I even thought that. Guess the tin crystallization catalyst just isn't meant to be. But maybe, with a little enemy luring, we can settle for second place. After all, Logan does still drop his staff when he dies, and although his current staff isn't as strong as the crystal one, it's still one of the best staves in the game. And with a little help from the crystal soldiers, we've done it. Logan dies from his own hubris, and we collect a spell we can't use, and no takebacks, finders keepers, you'll never take me alive! So yeah, I have no fucking clue why or how that worked. But my only guess is that he already changed inventories because we bought all of his spells? Maybe? I don't know, man, I just work here. But now for something completely different. Nito, Lord of the Underworld and all-around pain in my side. Like the other lords, he's immune to poison and toxic, so a beefed-up Karmic Justice is really the only option we've got. But with the red Tearstone ring, Crown of the Dark Sun, and the Ring of the Sun's Firstborn, which gives us an extra 20% miracle damage, we just might be able to pull something off. Oh, by Fletchy, that's more than a quarter of his health. Of course, staying in that just about to die sweet spot with 6 skeletons and a lich bearing down on you isn't exactly easy, so we're gonna have to get a bit experimental. I tried putting on some heavier armor, which mitigated some of the damage, but it also made it extremely hard to get away from his AoE attacks. And after several hours of failed attempts trying to glass cannon my way through the fight, and learning that his grab attack makes him immune to damage, for some reason, I decided to go with the age-old strategy of not even trying. And you know what? It worked. Turns out, we didn't need 4 red Tearstone Ring Karmic Justice blasts. We just needed 1. The other 3 blasts were more than enough to take out Nito at their regular strength. And with that, that's a Lord Soul collected. I'm honestly shocked we were able to pull that off. Well, if we were able to beat one Lord Soul, what's to say we can't beat another? And we might even have a bit of help this time around. Hey B, how's life? After several resets, I was able to finally get Beatrice to ignore the ghosts and walk through the fog wall, and so began the slow, terrible fight that is the 4 Kings. That's some bad damage there, kid. Please tell me you've got something stronger in that spellbook of yours. Maybe a soul spear? Okay, just great heavy soul arrow, okay. Well, I hate to say it, but something tells me that Beatrice is more hurtful than helpful. Guess we're on our own with this one. So I have some good news and a lot of bad news. The good news is that the 4 Kings can absolutely trigger Karmic Justice when all 4 of them are on the field at once, and it does a pretty significant amount of damage. The bad news is that not only do you need all 4 Kings on the field, but they need to be close together to get that huge damage. You also need to choose between your 2 rings because we lose 1 ring slot to the Abyss, and the run back to this fight is absolutely atrocious. But good news again, we can actually use Havel's shield during this fight, since the Four Kings attacks are both physical and magical, which means a little bit of chip damage always slips past and can trigger Karmic Justice. See that? That's called the compliment sandwich. It helps take the sting out of... Well, it took several hours, but we finally got it. The Four Kings blasted to smithereens by their own karma. God, is this what the one-shot contestants felt like? This is awful. Why did I make them do this? Last but not least on our little trip is the Bed of Chaos. I don't think there's any way to beat it, but I figured I might as well stop by and confirm. As expected, it can't be poisoned or toxic, and having Karmic Justice on doesn't do any good, because the only attack that can reach in here is the Firestorm attack, which only hits you once, not multiple times. So yeah, Bed of Chaos is also a no-go. But hey, 2 out of 4 ain't bad. So, with the door to the kiln of the First Flame firmly sealed, and the DLC content locked behind a Hydra, how are we going to beat the game? Well, it feels dirty to even say it out loud, but we're going to have to resort to a glitch. Yep, did you see that? The speedrunners in the audience just perked up. I've never really used glitches in Dark Souls 1 before, so bear with me if my explanation is a little lackluster, but essentially what we're going to be doing is casting the Homeward Miracle in such a way that we trick the game into sending me to the wrong location. A wrong warp, if you will. By putting a talisman in both hands, we're going to cast Force with the left hand while nearly simultaneously casting Homeward with the right hand. I say nearly because we need to cast Homeward 1 frame after we cast Force, which, for all of you math nerds out there, gives us a window of 0.016 seconds. Do it right and your hands will glow yellow, with Homeward going off and sending you to the wrong location. There's actually a whole chart online somewhere showing what bonfires you need to rest at and what location you need to wrong warp from if you're interested, but we only care about one location. The kiln of the First Flame. So, with that terrible and completely unsatisfactory understanding of what's going on, let's get into the setup. We have to go to Firelink Altar, rest at the bonfire, warp to Undead Parish, then immediately go up the stairs here and perform a plunging attack at this banister. Yes, I made that look easy, and no, I will not show you the hours of practice this took. Then, very carefully, you need to turn around to look at the bonfire, then wrong cast Homeward on the first attempt, which will carry you off the banister and allow you to hopefully sit down at the bonfire while the Homeward animation triggers. Dang it! I was at this for hours, just falling off the railing and mistiming my button presses over and over. But then, when all hope seemed lost, a miracle happened. Or technically 2. I helped the Black Knights realize their dreams of being base jumpers, without parachutes, then made a horrifying realization. I forgot Solaire! Hey Solaire, what you doing here, pal?
Was it all a lie? Have I done this all for nothing?
I can honestly say I've never heard this dialogue before, because believe it or not, I'm about to do something that I've never done in my 1,000 plus hours of playing Dark Souls 1. I'm gonna summon Solaire to help me fight Gwyn. Let's earn that sun. Together. And so it begins. The final fight of Dark Souls 1. Using a buckler, I'm able to parry Gwyn's attacks away from me, which simultaneously minimizes the damage he can do to me and Solaire, and also gives Solaire an opening for attacks, which he may or may not take advantage of. Ah, crap. You know, I should probably be tanking those hits instead of Solaire. Come on, Gwyn, fight me. No, me, not Solaire! Alright, let me do a little preemptive healing. There we are. And now we give him a bit of the wombo combo. Yes, dude! And, in a surprisingly short amount of time, it's over. It's actually over. A majority of Dark Souls 1, beaten with indirect damage only. And with one final heal for Solaire, it's time to claim our very own sun. That was one heck of a challenge run. Easily up there with immolation only as far as difficulty goes. But if there's one thing I love about the Dark Souls series, it's how absolutely wild you can get when thinking outside the box. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you had a good time, and maybe even learned something new in the process. As a quick reminder, the Lemon plushie is on sale now, and will be for a limited time only, so make sure you grab one of those if you're interested. But other than that, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.